Just a couple words about Tigran for those for the recording. Yeah, but for the recording, we all know Tigran, of course, Sargsyan, but it's particularly it's my pleasure to be able to sort of present him to an audience of people Zooming as well as here locally. He's an associate professor of geography at Yerevan State University, one of the 6 participants this semester in the American Studies project at Arizona State University for development of American Studies at Yerevan State University, a partnership. He received his PhD in geography in 2010 from Yerevan State University with special fields of study in sustainable development and regional development, also in environment and ecology. Tigran has spent many stints overseas in Germany, also in as far east as Sri Lanka and throughout much of Europe. The 2 American Studies courses that he's teaching build upon his training in one on regional and political geography of the United States. Energy policy in the United States. He's held several Tempus grants and DAAD German grants, fellowships. It's a delight to have Tigran with us this semester and tonight for his talk on energy and energy policy in contemporary Armenia. I think if you come up here, then Zoom and yeah. Thank you very much. Welcome here.
Thank you very much, Professor Batelden. Good evening, dear friends, dear colleagues, Father Zakaria, dear community members. I'm pleased to provide a speech today on energy and energy policy in today's Armenia. And as a real Armenian, I'm especially pleased and honored to provide this speech in this holy place, which is a really very good chance for me. So thank you very much, Professor Batelden and Father Zakaria, for this nice opportunity. So let's start, and afterwards, if you have any questions, I'll be pleased to answer them. So energy and energy policy in today's Armenia. Eric, please, the next one. I'm not in this photo, actually, but I was definitely among hundreds of thousands of guys who survived the energy crisis of the early 1990s. This is in the middle of the photo, you can see a wood burning stove. And we're burning wood inside just to get some heat and to cook something and not to get frozen, actually. Can you imagine this in multi-apartment buildings in big cities? It's horrible, actually. Maybe it's fine in rural areas, you know, where the private houses are big, but in multi-apartment block of flats in Yerevan, it was particularly horrible because no fire regulations, no safety regulations, and we were given electricity actually 40 minutes per day, 40 minutes daily, and 4 years. It was total darkness before that 40 minutes. It was a total darkness after that 40 minutes. And during that 40 minutes, I was a kid, I was a child, but I remember that we were sitting, enjoying the light, actually. Just sitting and enjoying the light, and it was a fantastic feeling. 4 years. That's why the meaning of energy for those who survived these terrible times is not very scientific, you know, so not very, very abstract. For us, energy has a very, very concrete, particular meaning. Energy is life. No energy, no life. That's actually what we clearly understood during the early 1990s, during our survival actually in Armenia. So this was actually very common practice for the beginning of 1990s. We're putting some potatoes on these stoves, cooking, baking them, and our mothers, grandmothers are trying to use that 40 minutes of electricity just to cook something, to iron our clothes. And it was a total darkness after that. And we were using candles to prepare our classes and etc. So that was horrible, but we could survive. That's why we clearly understood the great meaning of energy. Please, next one. And as we're going to talk about energy policy today, I would like to start with this chart showing that in each country, actually the country's energy policy can be discussed from two main perspectives. The first one is inside view or a part of international relations system, but meanwhile, it's also part of country's energy policy. So importing energy, exporting electricity, energy trade, cooperation, energy security, dependence, these kind of issues are included in this external or international or foreign energy policy. So I'll be focusing on these two, providing a more or less comprehensive framework on both domestic energy policy of Armenia and also international energy policy. I'll try to be not very boring, so let's see. Eric, the next one, please. That will, yeah. So let's start from energy resources of the Republic of Armenia, and let's understand the main patterns of energy sector. Well, I'll start from two positive things, two good things. You see the point number one and point number two. We have a relative stability, more or less, relative stability and development opportunities in energy sector in Armenia. And as the electricity support and distribution network is not very overdated, so we have only few, not so much losses of electricity and resources. So there is stability, of course, especially comparing with the early 1990s. But let's move to more sad things now, especially the dot number 3. We don't have significant local fossil fuel resources. There is some coal. We have around 9,500 big and small rivers in Armenia, and this is a very good potential for electricity production in Armenia. And we also have renewables, like the solar energy and the wind energy, but unfortunately, these capacities are not being used properly today, so that's an issue. And 2 years ago, before the COVID started, so electricity production in Armenia was around 7.5 billion kilowatt hours, 7.5 billion, which is totally covering the country's electricity needs. So we're not importing electricity. It's totally covering electricity. And there is also some export, not so much actually, to Georgia, to Iran. So this is our production volume. So Eric, the next one, please. And let's see how this electricity is distributed. That's actually a topic which we were discussing a couple of weeks ago. Roughly 40%, this orange part, I mean, roughly 40% of the electricity produced in Armenia is based on Russian gas. I mean, thermal power stations, Jerma Elektrakayan in Armenian, and they are on the map. These red dots you see, there are only 3. The biggest one is in Hrazdan, and in Vanadzor and in Yerevan. These are TPS, thermal power stations. And the Yerevan thermal power station is owned by the Republic of Armenia, and Hrazdan is jointly owned by Tashir Group and also Gazprom Armenia. So there are 3 thermal power stations, 3 TPS, providing in total roughly 40% of the electricity in Armenia. And these are working totally on imported gas, from natural gas from Russian Federation. 31% is the share of hydroelectric power stations. Again, more than 9,000 rivers, and these blue dots, we have dozens of them, that's why I didn't specify them. This is the top 10 or 12 you can see here. And these hydropower stations are giving around 31%. And that's why Lake Sevan in Armenia was damaged too much, because during that energy crisis years, we were using the Lake Sevan water also for electricity purposes. That is why the level was decreased significantly. And the black one, sometimes a nightmare for some neighbors of Armenia, that's Armenian nuclear power station, Armenian NPS, giving around 29% of that 7.5 billion. There is only one. A bit later, I'll talk more detailed about Metsamor Armenian nuclear power station. There's only one. You see, it's also owned by the Republic of Armenia. It's CJSC, Closed Joint Stock Company. And unfortunately, only 0.3%, that's nonsense actually, but only 0.3% of electricity is coming from other sources. And these other sources are include also the renewables, small hydroelectric power stations, etc. So you see, this is the energy map of Armenia, showing the three main types of power stations providing the total electricity in Armenia. Next one, please. So let's talk a bit about Armenian or Metsamor power station. It is located around 30 miles from Yerevan and 10 miles from Armenian-Turkish state border in the region of Armavish. It's very close from Yerevan and very close to Turkish border. It started operating 45 years ago, actually, in 1976. It has 2 blocks, and the first block started operating in 1976, 45 years ago. And it was shut down in 1988. Why? Because of the terrible earthquake, which happened in Armenia on December 7th, 1988, killing 25,000 people. I was 6 years old, and I remember that. I remember the streets full of coffins. Kids' coffins, adults. I remember the streets full of, I don't know, some coats or some blankets for people and the homeless people and the tragedy. And in general, I would like to say that the end of 1980s and the beginning of 1990s, it was a particular horrible period for Armenia. The earthquake, the war, this energy crisis, the blockade, the earthquake. And I don't know why, but during this period, we have got especially cold winters. And when we didn't have anything to burn or just to eat something, there were very long lines for bread. People were standing in a line since 5 a.m. to buy a bread by 10 a.m. in the morning. And we were having especially cold winters. So this altogether made a very horrible situation in my country. But the Soviet government in 1988, because there was a risk after this earthquake, Armenia is very seismic actually, they decided to shut down this nuclear power station, and it restarted 7 years later, actually in 1995. I also remember the day when we were given electricity and they didn't cut it. I was waiting, so 1 hour passed, 2 hours, I was waiting when it will become dark again, but no. Then we understood that the nuclear power station is operating, and now we'll have electricity at least some 12 or 20 hours daily. And Another painy, let's say, issue is the operational lifetime for our nuclear power station is 60 years. So we can exploit, we can use our nuclear power station at least by 2036. So starting from 1976 plus 60 years. So this lifetime period ends in 2036, and the government, but luckily, this nuclear power station, yeah, it's old but safe. It was licensed many times by Japanese specialists, famous specialists, nuclear specialist engineers, and luckily it's safe. And but of course we need alternatives after 2036. So let's see. And the nuclear fuel, uranium, is imported from Russian Federation. So two main energy resources, natural gas and nuclear fuel, are coming from nine, 30% of country's electricity. The next one, please. I know it's a kind of boring, but just let me give you a very short overview on regulation of legislation, I mean, in Armenia. Before 2019, there was a Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure. Now it's only a unit within a broader Ministry of Territorial Administration and Infrastructure. And we adopted the law on energy. It was amended in 2017, and also a law on energy efficiency and renewable energy, which is also very important. And we have one state regulator. We call it Public Services Regulatory Committee. And they are setting the tariffs for electricity, for gas, and for water, etc. And actually this year, in 2021, 20 years energy sector strategic development plan was adopted by the government of Armenia, and focusing on four main ideas. You can see here transparency, diversification, efficiency, and sustainability. So Armenia's energy future will be based on these four main ideas. Next one, please. At the moment we have a pure monopoly here. There is the Electricity Networks of Armenia, Hayastani Elektrakonstansi, CJSC. It is the only electricity distributor in Armenia since 2006, only one. And it's serving around 1 million utility consumers, not 1 million people, but household utility consumers. So it's making almost the total population of Armenia, around 3 million people, let's say. And it's actually one of Armenia's greatest employers. And it is owned by Tashir Group, a group of companies belonging to famous Russian Armenian businessman Samuel Karapetyan. So it's this CJSC is owned by this Tashir Group company. But according to Energy Law Amendment of 2017, a market liberalization is planned, which means that utility consumers will be able to purchase electricity not from one company, not from one provider, but from several of them. So the market will be more or less open, and you can have a choice in this case. So this is very briefly our electricity distribution system. The next one, please. I think that the domestic energy policy is done now in this presentation. So now let's talk a bit about international perspectives. And first of all, we must start from the import of energy resources. And afterwards, I'll explain you why I put this diagram again here. So natural gas, 100%, almost 100% import from Russian Federation via the territory of the Republic of Georgia. And Georgia is having great benefits for gas transportation. They can even choose either they want free gas, free of charge, or just money. That's their choice. And as Armenia doesn't have direct border with Russia, that's why there is a factor of Georgia between us. And a very limited volume of gas, very, very limited, is imported from Islamic Republic of Iran, but only for electricity for gas swap. What does it mean? The gas is coming from Iran. In Armenia, we are producing electricity from this gas and sending electricity back to Iran. Because in the regions which are in Iranian regions closer to Armenia, they don't have enough electricity production capacities. And that's why a very, very limited volume of gas from Iran is coming, but not for local utility consumers, just for this electricity gas change, and we are earning some money from this. As I said, the nuclear fuel is coming again from Russian Federation, and oil and petroleum products like the auto gas and other fuels are coming mostly from three countries: Iran, Russian Federation, and Georgia. Now, if we look at this chart, we can easily calculate, let's say, the energy dependence of Armenia from one country. Roughly 40% thermal power stations based on gas, Russian gas, and about 29% of nuclear power station activities also based on Russian fuel, nuclear fuel. So 40 plus 29, it's roughly 69, 70% of energy dependence on one country. And what we have, of course, the hydroelectric power potential and renewables, but this is not a significant alternative actually, because 70% of dependence is really, really very significant. The next one, please. Oh, tariffs. Very sensitive topic for all of us, for those who live in Armenia and paying the utility costs in Armenia. So, of course, if you are importing energy significantly, it is affecting your tariffs, of course, significantly. Your tariffs are depending on these importing processes. And for example, in 2019, the Gazprom, this giant Russian company, just raised the gas price for Armenia by 10%. Just don't ask me why, I just say what happened. So by 10%, and nowadays, let me just read to give you proper information. The gas price on the border of Armenia is $1 for around 210 cubic feet. $1 for 214 cubic feet, but this is the price on the border. I mean the local utility consumers are paying more because there are additional costs like services, like transportation of gas, storages. That is why for local consumers we again pay $1, but now for 125 cubic feet. So we are purchasing 42% less gas for the same price, actually, what's happening. And I can give you an example of my apartment. I'm living in Yerevan with my family. We are four, my wife, me, and our two kids. And we have an apartment which is around 1,100 square feet. It's about 103 square meters. We have small kids. We have to heat the house properly. And I can say that for the winter months, the utility costs, I mean gas plus electricity monthly, is about from 150 to, let's say, $170, $180 monthly. And if we take the winter, the 3 months of winter in general, altogether, it's about $500 for a winter. And believe me, for Armenia, it's much. $500 for the winter. Yeah, of course, it depends, the salaries, the incomes of family, but in general, $170 monthly if you have a big house, if you have a good heating system, if you have to heat your apartment because of small kids, to avoid any sicknesses, then you have to pay around $500 for the winter period. This is some case study. Basically using gas to produce electricity. We know that thermal power stations are polluting the environment the most. I mean, the atmosphere pollution, which is leading to climate change, to greenhouse effect, to temperature increase. So the hydropower stations on the river, they are safe, they are clean, they are pure, but these thermal ones are really very, very significantly polluting the environment. And in each country, we really need this supply diversification. What I mean here? So the key idea of energy policy of each country is energy security. And the key idea of energy security is the supply diversification. What does it mean? Buying not from one seller, not from one provider, but at least from several. So you are reducing your energy dependence on one particular provider, because who knows what happens. And you always have to have a plan B or significant alternative to that. Geopolitical issues, and like the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, which is bypassing Armenia, and several other projects. So geographically, Armenia is between Europe and Asia and is the shortest transportation route through the territory of Armenia. But because of well-known circumstances, now we have this bypassing process, and we don't have any benefits from this regional giant gas and electricity and oil transportation processes in the region. That is why it's very difficult to talk about a real plan B or an alternative. What about Iran? Well, Iran is our neighbor, but of course, we can consider Iran as an alternative when all kind of these complicated relations, the difficulties between Iran and the rest of the world will be successfully decided, and sanctions against Iran. So at the moment, unfortunately, I would say that we don't have a significant plan B and a significant alternative to 70% energy dependence. That's what actually is happening. Yeah, we can increase the renewables. That would be fantastic. It's 0.3. We can increase it by 10, 15. That will be a great achievement. But again, we need something more. And that is why, please, the next one. Father Zakaria, you can see the solar panel on the church, on the top of the church. So Armenian Apostolic Church is contributing to green energy and sustainable energy development very significantly. To be honest, I'm not sure which church is this, but there are solar panels, and this really makes me happy. So renewable energy development, plan B. So it's a question actually. So we have, I can say that, significant renewable energy capacities in Armenia. I mean, the solar energy capacities, Armenia is a very sunny country, you know, and in Armenia, in some areas like in Ararat Valley or in Lake Sevan area, we have, in many places, we have up to 2,700 sunny hours per year. 2,700 sunny hours, which mean, let's say, 112 sunny days per year, when the sky is totally clear, and this is a great capacity, great opportunity for solar energy development. And we can use it, and this is becoming more and more popular in Armenia, but still the share is kind of nonsense like. So, and also the wind power is also significant, because in mountain passes, when it is an area between two mountain ranges and the winds are very strong in these areas. If you travel to Stepanavan, to Tashir, to Lori, and to Sisyan in many mountainous areas, in mountainous passes, you can see this wind power stations, which is also a good alternative. Another one is small hydroelectric capacities. Our rivers are mostly very rapid and mountainous, and this is particularly good for constructing hydroelectric power stations. We have more than 9,000, and there are also capacities in this sphere. So, making a summary of this, I would say that Plan B as alternative energy development, we consider it significantly. This is very, the future is for this green energy, of course, because Armenia has also international obligations to increase this energy, renewable energy share, and to decrease the CO2 emissions. But now I just showed you what we have at the moment. I guess that's all. The next one is, of course, academic honesty the first. That is why let me just show you the list of my photos and the list of my sources. I was basically using United States Department of Commerce International Trade Administration analysis on Armenia's energy market, and also statistical data, quite reliable, from State Statistical Committee of the Republic of Armenia, armstat.org. Thanks for attention. If you have any questions, I'll be pleased and honored to answer them. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nicely done. Maybe I'll just begin with one question. Eric, do you want to begin? Go ahead.
Actually, negotiations with Russian Federation are in process, and of course we understand that we have still, let's say, 15 years by 2036, but then we have to skip this nuclear project, this existing nuclear power station. And yes, and it's also mentioned in energy, 20 years energy development strategic plan that a new nuclear power station should be constructed and almost in the same area, because this area is more or less stable from seismic point of view, and this Ararat Valley area could be the best location for the new one. And also in this program are mentioned couple of other activities like integration of our electricity network to becoming a transit electricity node between Georgia and Iran, to increase this gas import capacity from Iran for electricity for them. So, and also more tight integration with Georgian electricity networks. So there are some perspectives, but yes, of course, this new power station plan is also discussed. And I think it really makes sense, because 45 years, even if it's safe, it's too much, and we have to renovate the sphere. Yeah, the talks are ongoing now.
The U.S. in certain sectors has encouraged or even subsidized energy saving, converting to more efficient water heaters, heating and air conditioning systems, things like LED lights.
Yes.
How affordable are those options, and how easily is the Armenian able to take advantage of those to help save on their energy?
Yeah, well, first of all, of course, the government of the United States via USAID and other governmental organizations are really investing and helping in renewable energy development sector in Armenia. What's happening now? Actually, many people in rural areas and urban areas are just buying these solar panels, putting on the roof. But you have to pay first, and in 2-3 years, your costs will be reimbursed, and you will have profit from this solar system. Of course, everything depends on price, because sometimes the good quality solar panels are sometimes not very affordable for the local consumers. I mean, there are cheap and good ones. There are the high quality solar panels from Germany, Israel, and comparatively cheaper from China, for example. But anyway, you have to pay couple of thousands dollars, euros, up to 10, 12, depends on what kind of solar panel are you buying. You have to buy the first, and is increasing. Training session by different NGOs, by ministry, by foreign embassies, United States Embassy. The projects of green energy are increasing the people's awareness in this. And in Armenia, well, and in countries like Armenia with the same social and economic situation, well, first of all, we are thinking about our profit, money, survival, household. Yeah, I cannot say you have to pay $10,000 now, and this is for the green planet in 10 years. Yeah, we have to take this into account. But it's really making me happy that young people, especially young people involved in different environmental campaigns or organizations, they know that it's necessary now. And hopefully in coming couple of years, it will be more and more popular, and we'll be having a greater share in our electricity production.
I just have a question. Well, first of all, following on David's question on efficiency questions, where in the higher education system would someone go to be trained as an energy auditor for retrofitting buildings for testing the,
Yeah.
they have all kinds of laser equipment for testing thermal loss.
Yes.
Is that done at Yerevan State University, or is that done at Polytechnic? If I want to become an energy auditor, knowing how to work one of these efficient systems for movement of air in a building and all, loss of energy, where would I go to train?
Thank you, Professor Betelden. That's actually what I clearly realized here at ASU, visiting energy policy courses. I clearly understood that there is some gap, and we really need to do something, because energy efficiency and efficient heating here is very important, and students know about that, and they're trained properly. Yerevan State University is more classic university, you know. That is why I would say in Polytechnic. In Polytechnic, there are several departments on energy efficiency, and also cooperating with employers. So the more theoretical knowledge in Yerevan State University, but more practical skills and trainings in Armenian State, how we call it, Armenian State Polytechnical University. Yes, sorry. Yes, yes. So at least two higher education institutions are providing this energy specialists, but of course there is room for improvement in the context of these sustainable energy specialists and energy efficiency specialists. So there is still much to be done.
Let me ask the other side of the coin now.
Yeah.
Just using your example from your own flat.
Yes.
If I were an investor, I would think that it would be very attractive to work out an arrangement much like they've done at Arizona State University, where the Arizona State University is paying the same electricity bill that it's paid for the last 10 years, but it is going to be entirely run by solar energy by 2025. It's now about 80%. Because of all those, you've seen those solar panels all over every building. And then the middle person, the investor, actually then uses that payment of your regular electricity bill for the first 10 years to implant the solar energy on your roof. And then after the 10 years, you're generating energy at your own free of charge off the solar panels. Is there not that kind of investment that's going on in Armenia for middle person investors who are willing to lay out cash for the first 10 years becomes self-sustaining?
As far as I know, not centralized, systemized projects at
Right.
the moment. Yeah, uh, but I can bring you an example of another university where I'm teaching in Yerevan. This is Russian Armenian University, and the roof is totally covered by solar panels. Totally covered by solar panels, and they are just covering some electricity needs for these projectors, for labs, etc. Returning back to your question, unfortunately today, yeah, there are good examples. You can walk in Yerevan, you can see that on the roofs of buildings, you can see the solar panels, and especially those who are living on whose apartment are just immediately under the roof, they are benefiting the most from this. But unfortunately, not very centralized, not very systemized approaches. Yeah, there are. Some enterprises, some business projects like RP Solar, dedicated to solar energy in the regions, just installing LED illumination in villages. Viva Celemtes and other region, and also some regional development companies are investing in this kind of green energy projects and also LED energy saving illumination. But I would really say that the room for improvement is huge here, and there are enough capacities in our country. And if we could increase the share of renewables by 10–15%, because 112 sunny days, many windy days, rapid mountainous rivers, all this will provide with a great opportunity to develop it in Armenia. But yeah, we need some incentives, because yeah,
One of the
yeah,
incentives I
yeah,
had in mind, the Glasgow conference
yes,
has now, with all the great powers involved,
mhm,
committed itself. It didn't make it back in 2020,
yeah,
but now it has committed itself to $100 billion dollars annually, transferring from highly developed economies to
mhm,
those who are still emerging.
mhm,
And if $100 billion is being committed over the course of annually from 2023 and on,
mhm.
I can't believe there wouldn't be $1 billion available for this kind of investment. That some of us got to get ready to
Yeah.
utilize this. It seems to me.
Yeah. Anyway, of course, I would like to finish on a very positive note, and saying that, yeah, both European investments and American investments today in this sector are significant. And especially in rural areas, we can see also good examples of these energy saving systems. And rural areas are benefiting from small hydroelectric power stations. But again, comparing with 70%, it's again, the gap is different, is very huge. And I don't know how realistic is this for the coming decades to have a real alternative, but we are going the right way, I believe. And of course, the renewable energy is the future of energy, actually. And especially when we have enough capacities, especially when the international community like United States, European Union are interested in implementing and financing and investing, I believe that we can have good results in the coming years, decades. So let's see, let's be optimistic, please. Yeah, that's actually a kind of process where so we constructed a pipeline. Iran and Armenia constructed Iran-Armenian pipeline from Iran to Armenia, and the owner of the Armenian part of pipeline is again Gazprom Armenia. And Iran has significant gas resources, especially in Persian Gulf and in coastal area of the Caspian Sea. East, the most powerful thermal power station in Armenia, or energy station in Armenia, actually. owned jointly by Tashir Group and Gazprom Armenia. So Iranian gas is coming via this pipeline to Armenia. Then in this Razdan thermal power station, we are producing electricity based on this gas. And this gas, again, goes back to Islamic Republic of Iran. Again, as I said, why? Because the territory of Iran is very huge. And there are two regions, Iranian regions, which border on Armenia. They call it Iranian Azerbaijan East, Iranian Azerbaijan West. These areas have very desert, almost very dry climate with almost no electricity production capacities. That is why, especially for border areas of Iran, this Armenian electricity coming based on their own gas is a significant contribution to the energy balance of these regions. So the process is kind of exchange. We, the local consumers in Armenia, utility consumers, we don't have any benefits from this, but this is good for the country's electricity system in general. Gas is coming from Iran and going back electricity to Iran. That's actually the electricity for gas swap. And according to Energy Sector Development Strategy 2041, by 2041, it is planned to increase this swap and increase the gas import from Iran and electricity export back to Iran, and also connect it somehow to Georgian electricity networks. That's becoming let's say a transit node or electricity transit point between Georgian electricity system and Iranian electricity system. But of course, in this case, there are also some geopolitical and political aspects of this question. And first of all, related to Iran's positions in many cases and future negotiations for Iran, which should start hopefully. So that's actually the meaning of this process. Armenia is an electricity producer for Iran based on a very limited volume of import of their gas, actually. As much as it's possible to provide on the base of the imported volume of gas, technically. So they provide, let's say, 1 million cubic meters. So technically it's possible to produce some amount of electricity from this, and it goes back. Yeah, they can increase and decrease the volume of gas, but Armenian government tries to increase and also to have some transnational cooperation between Iran, Georgia, and Armenia. That's actually what is planned. Not bad, of course, but again, we have to pay attention to the political and geopolitical aspects and interests of different political players, global political players, and look what's happening in negotiation processes with Iran, what will happen in this context.
Environmental issues too.
Sure. This one, you mean? Yeah. I would say that nuclear will not increase and will not decrease. So we will have more or less stable situation. If we use all our nuclear capacity, which we have nowadays, we'll have more or less stable situation here, maybe some little decrease. But if we increase other sources, let's say up to 15% of renewables, it can take some shares from, let's say, 5 or 7% from thermal power stations and nuclear power stations. So this will not change significantly, you know. We will have something like 32, 34% for thermals and something like 24, 25 for nuclear, and instead something like 15 for alternative. And this hydropower stations, I believe that this share will stay more or less the same because the rivers are flowing, the electricity is produced, so nothing can be changed significantly here. But the changes may happen in these green and orange areas, some decrease here and some increase there. Of course, in case of nuclear, so if we continue to exploit, to use our nuclear power station by 2036, and to use all these capacities, it will be around 24, 25%. And in future, if we construct a new one, so this share will be almost the same. You're welcome. Yeah, me too. This picture is especially for you. Yeah, because I was pleasantly surprised when I was looking for good photos showing this Father Zakari. Actually, I was confused because in this holy place to talk about energy policy. Energy policy is actually the most non-religious topic which can be spoken here. Energy policy, light. So we know that there are other theories of electricity and light and energy. But when I saw this photo, nice Armenian church and solar panels on the roof, I said this should be here. And this is a contribution of Armenian Apostolic Church. I was sure that you would like this. So.
Of course, the cost of solar panels has just plummeted.
Yes. Yep.
Big thank you to, this is
my pleasure.
interesting. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.